Afternoon.
Always nice to have you on with us. It is the usual thing, isn't it, with a story such as this? I alluded to budget time, when the Chancellor does a big budget, everybody gets a slice of the pie. Isn't the Chancellor generous? Wow, they're giving money away, we're all going to be rich. And then 24 hours later, the bean counters have been in, they've whipped out their abaci, and they've had a good old look at the numbers, and it doesn't quite add up. That's sort of what's happening to some now with this. Many are saying, well, we've now had a deeper dive into Nigel Farage's plans, and they are ambitious. Some saying they're not affordable, others saying they're not even remotely achievable. There are definitely some humps in the road for reform on this.
Certainly. Look, I think what Nigel Farage has done this whole summer, but particularly in yesterday's press conference, is tap into some real public anger and a genuine kind of thirst for change from the British public. So they want these boats to stop. They think illegal immigration is far too high. And really, they're happy to see radical solutions put forward in order to solve that. Now, the question over Nigel Farage's and reforms policy will be really with the detail. So he says, I think he says it's going to cost, I think on the tip of my tongue, it's 10 billion. Am I wrong?
10 billion was what he came up with, but a former colleague of his had a much bigger number.
He says these plans are going to cost 10 billion. Now, looking at these plans, you imagine it's going to cost more than that, because you're talking about building new detention centres. You're talking about policing those detention centres. You know, a lot of the people you're putting in these new sites, as Nigel himself say, are young, fit men. So it's going to take some real security to keep them penned in 24/7. You're talking about mass deportation flights, maybe with a cash incentive for both the country taking them back and potentially the illegal migrant getting on board that flight. So I think we're going to potentially see those numbers rise. And then you're looking at, is it feasible? Can you get these countries to agree to take these flights back?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's certainly true that British people want these flights taking off, and they will be happy to see them go. But can you get Afghanistan, Eritrea to agree to land them? And
you've got to be, I think they were talking about 5 flights a day. Is that 5 flights a day for 5 years? I mean, that's a lot of aircraft. You've then, as you alluded to there, you've got to find somewhere to land them, Kate. You've got to get agreements on that. I mean, the list, it's not that Nigel Farage is suggesting it's straightforward or easy, but the more you look into this, you think, yep, it's doable, but boy, it's going to take a whole department to do this.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what you're going to have to do is do what Trump's done in America, is really throw the kitchen sink at it. I mean, look, you alluded to it in your intro. Does Nigel Farage want a headline with the Taliban saying, thank you, yes, please, we relish the idea of working with a reform government? Well, on the one hand, probably not, but it's quite interesting that yesterday at Lobby, when Number 10's press spokesman was asked about it, he says, well, actually sending people back to Afghanistan working with the Taliban is not off the table. So, you know, Nigel is tapping into something here. And the other thing that I was going to point out that's happened today is that Nigel Farage is the first mainstream big politician to say, look, that's it, we've got to junk the ECHR, we've got to quit the ECHR. Yeah. We expect Kemi to follow suit at Tory conference. She hasn't done that yet. But interestingly, in the FT, the pink pages, Jack Straw's talking about Britain needing to disentangle from the ECHR.
Wow.
A former, you know, Labour big beast politician. Yeah. So this isn't just a kind of fringe, right-wing, you know, extreme position. I think you're starting to see a political consensus emerge that the ECHR is now, you know, being used in ways it was never designed for and needs either radical reform or for us to disentangle from it altogether.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Jack Straw. I remember bumping into him in Parliament once, and when he was Home Secretary, and asking him how it was going. He said, look at the job I do. Well, how do you think it's going? And he looked like, not defeated, but never-ending. And I remember that comment that he made about, you know, if you want to really overload anyone's head, then just make them the Home Secretary and show them the immigration files, because that's the area that is never... And that was then, of course. And he was very vocal at the time. I remember him getting criticised on Question Time because he dared to talk about some of the issues around grooming gangs, which was raised, and that was way back. So it's interesting that he's sort of intervened a little bit on this one. And I suppose The overarching issue, Kate, just to go back to reform and these big, bold plans, it involves them winning an election. And to get this into action, you haven't just got to win it, you've got to win it big.
Yeah, look, these are radical proposals, and the British public will quite rightly only really believe it when they see it, because they've been promised a lot by different politicians that they would stop the boats, smash the gangs, and those numbers keep going up. The arrivals keep landing in Dover. Nigel Farage is obviously way ahead in the polls. You know, I noticed that today the bookies are slashing the odds of a Reform victory again.
Yeah.
But it's 4 long years to wait till the next general election. And it's true that if you don't win a general election big, you can be held kind of to ransom by your backbenchers. Any slim majority means a kind of just small cabal behind you can thwart your plans. And we do know, don't we, no shade on Reform, but their politicians can sometimes fall out with one another.
Yes.
But, you know, 4 long years till the election. And what I would say to Nigel is he's definitely seized the political initiative this summer. He's definitely the one kind of setting the headlines. And where he is going, we are seeing other politicians follow.
That's exactly it, isn't it? And we saw even Kemi Badenoch yesterday, which I thought was a bit of a cheek, really, suggested that Reform had stolen her plans. And a lot of people were going, well, I've never heard you even talk about this before, Kemi, other than the soundbite of getting tough on immigration. You've never said anything like this before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is really a copy and paste job of the Tory plans. Tory's she's famously waiting for Tory conference, which isn't happening until October, to announce what we all know she's going to announce, which is that Tories will back withdraw from the ECHR. I mean, it is true that Nigel Farage is being bigger, bolder, and, you know, to be honest, we're going to be honest here, controversial. You know, some people really might find it unpalatable to think that you're going to create detention centres. Sure. You know, that's something that we've not done before as a country. You know, maybe the voters think, OK, well, we want to stop the boats, but we don't want to go that far. You know, you'll have to see how this really plays out once people hear and consume what he said yesterday.
Indeed. Well, you look at places like, you know, I was reading a piece in the Times earlier, I'm sure you would have read it too, I know you don't tell anybody you do, but you would have done, about how other countries are dealing with this issue, and they cited even the Netherlands, you know, the sort of liberal place that, you know, is open to all sorts over there in the Netherlands, but they have migrant registration centres over there. Many other countries, Germany and France in particular, are changing their policies on what they do. So there is certainly a mood change, but as you rightly say, Kate, Farage is taking it to a whole new level. Listen, lovely to have you on again. We will speak, of course, very, very soon. That is, of course, Kate Ferguson. She's the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, with her thoughts on it. It's bold, ambitious, and what's wrong with that? Let's speak to Laila Cunningham, Westminster Councillor for Reform UK. Laila, good afternoon to you. What did you make, firstly, then, this big announcement yesterday from your leader? We've never seen anything like this before. We've heard the main parties, if we can call them that any longer, wheeling out sort of sound bites over the last few years. But this was pretty solid stuff. Is it really achievable?
Of course it's achievable. We're going to have a democratic mandate, and anyone who wants to subvert democracy by going against it is going to have a lot of problems. You know, the British government has a duty to protect its people. We don't have a duty to illegal migrants who may pose a threat. We don't have a duty to foreign courts or regimes we didn't create. And what Nigel was clear about yesterday is a Reform government will always act in Britain's national interest. And I noticed you're talking about the Taliban. It's not about the Taliban. It's about enforcing the law. So if someone has no right to be here, they don't get to stay. It's as simple as that. And effectively, the Conservatives and Labour have decriminalised illegal migration into our country. Yeah. We don't have a border.
And we don't. If you can row on a boat into this country, then and stay here and be accommodated and fed, then you'd have to describe that in any world or anyone's book as a country without a border, right?
Well, exactly. I need a passport to get into this country, and I'm British. I can't come home without one. If I lost one abroad, I'd have to go to the consulate, sort myself out. I'd never dream of turning up at Heathrow Airport without a passport. And look, Ian, no one wants to send anyone to danger. But here's the real danger, right? The real danger is putting unvetted men in British towns near British women and girls when we have no idea who they are. And that's what's been happening now. And for me, one sexual assault, one rape, one criminal incident is just too many. And that's what Reform is refusing to defend or accept.
Yeah. Do you, I mean, I noticed yesterday, Kemi Badenoch, your former party, she suggested, as I was just saying to Kate Ferguson from The Sun on Sunday, she suggested that Nigel Farage had stolen her ideas, which I thought was, I mean, I don't mind, you know, a bit of hyperbole in politics, it's how it works, but that was an absolute peach. She went for the bullseye.
I mean, does anyone even read what the Conservatives put out? I don't think, I've not read it. You know, for decades, the Conservatives and Labour have promised action, and they've done they've done the exact opposite. I mean, they're still oscillating if they should leave the ECHR or not. It's clear that the ECHR is being abused by judges and lawyers to block deportation. Yeah. It's making our country more dangerous. And our plan sends a clear message, that's it. They never sent that clear message. Is it ambitious, Ian? Of course, absolutely. Is it impossible? No.
And what's wrong with being ambitious? I mean, what's wrong with, I mean, it's the lack of ambition that's been one of the biggest criticisms of the major parties over the last decade and a half.
Yeah, I mean, because they've lacked that political backbone. They've lacked the political courage. And we've seen from Nigel in the past, he definitely doesn't like that. And we finally have, you know, it was reassuring to hear Nigel speak yesterday. And I'm sure loads of people around the country were reassured to hear that finally there's a leader that is completely unapologetic, by the way, about putting our country and the British people's dreams, future, safety and hope first. We've been left behind.
And it's a view that's absolutely shared by so many of our listeners and viewers on this. Listen, Laila, I have to stop there for time and no other reason, but we are going to speak again on this. I know we will, because we always do. Laila Cunningham, Reform UK councillor for Westminster. Thank you to her.